May 12th, 4:43. I wanted to wait until something major happened before I started writing again. Well, it did. This morning I had a knock on my door, and so I opened it, thinking it was some kind of patron. It was my family. My parents and my sister Peta stood there looking at me. I recognized my mother and my father instantly, but Peta, on the other hand, was, well, she had grown up to be a beautiful young woman. It was a tearful reunion, to be sure. As I have a large staff now, I don't need to go into any of my bakeries today. And so I talked to my family all day. After my family fled La Fair, they went to the capital at Starlo. However, it was overcrowded, so they fled further into Baton, hoping to escape the turmoil. Baton was eventually conquered, and, well, my family were made into second-class citizens in the Baton city of Torpish. During that time, my father worked as a baker, and my mother was a laborer. When Peta was of age, she also helped in the bakery to make ends meet. Once they became full citizens, which was when I became a full citizen, they decided to take a chance and travel to Damaska in hopes that I would be alive. They asked me what I had done, and rather than give them every detail, I gave them the journal to read, because some of the things I've done can't be said out loud. I did tell them I constantly operated the bakery throughout the occupation. Peta is the one who encouraged me to write again. Here is a brief recap of what happened in the last 5 years. The new bridge spanning the river was completed this year. It's a sturdy and beautiful bridge, though not as great as the one we used to have. My bakery was very successful, and so I became quite wealthy. Early in this year, as soon as I became a citizen, I deposited most of my wealth into the bank. I opened a second and third bakery to accommodate all of our orders. At the moment, I have 40 employees. Mayor DeFranco died last year, but she served the city faithfully until her passing. Our new mayor isn't as great yet, but he has potential. The sons and daughters of Ramey had a few more major terrorist plots, but they have been quiet for so long that I think they finally dissolved. Thank the goddess they never found their way to me. I plan to bring my family on to help run the bakeries, but first, they deserve a long holiday. Zumez. May 25th, 4:43. By this point, my family has read the journal, and they all know what my thoughts were and what I did. My father is helping with the bakery by being one of my master bakers. He doesn't contest with my other bakers, and he works well with the team. My mother has asked for some money to start a little restaurant for sandwiches and other such foods. I think this is a great idea, and we are funding this project. I'm paying for my sister to attend university, and she plans to study philosophy like Gwenda. I wish by some miracle that Gwenda would have somehow survived, but she never showed back up. If she were alive, then she would have found her way home, regardless of Skenderite rules and restrictions. Actually, now that I think about it, she did find her way back home. She was with me on that fateful night back in 437. Even now, I believe she is with us. Finally, we're together as a family. Zumez. July 5th, 4:43. I had an unexpected visitor today. A young woman, a Skenderite-born woman, showed up at our family home, and she seemed to know quite a bit about all of us as a whole. She knew our names and minor details, enough that I was growing a little concerned. She was amused by my reaction, though, and then introduced herself as Paulaire Convitz, and she lived in what once was Darvaux. It's called Petit now. What a stupid name. Paulaire is quite beautiful, and perhaps the prettiest Skenderite I have ever seen. She revealed the source of her knowledge of us, an old leather-bound journal found in an antique store, written by a certain Gwenda Amisha. Upon opening the first page, I saw the writing style, and I knew this was Gwenda's journal. I'm not the only one who cried. My parents cried, Peter cried, and Palmer cried too. We thanked her, and I gave it to my father to read first. It was perhaps one of the greatest gifts my father had ever received, and he hugged and kissed Palmer over and over. Palmer had bought the journal after the war ended, and she was so enthralled by its stories. She always dreamed about meeting the family of the author. She also expressed sorrow over how the war went, and apologized on behalf of her people. My mother invited her to stay with us, and Palmer accepted. I can't wait to read my sister's journal. Zumez. Julitus 8th, 443. So my sister has been obsessed with meeting my friend Hansi ever since she read my journal. Today he came into the bakery, and Peter forced an introduction. Funny enough, Hansi was quite taken with her. My father hates him, and my mother is reserving judgment. I vouched for Hansi, regardless of his connection to the Skenderite military. Palmer and I have had many opportunities to talk. She is quite fascinating. She is studying economics at one of the universities in what once was Old Skendar, but she lives in PT when school isn't in session. She plans to work for the city governments one day to improve currency distribution. Her father was a soldier for the Skenderites, but he was killed in Starlo by one of the resistance fighters. I felt immensely cold upon hearing this, but thankfully we didn't linger on the topic. She was planning on returning to PT as school was starting soon in late Augustine. Palmer asked if she could write letters to me, and I eagerly, perhaps too eagerly, said yes. She admitted that she found my delight charming. Palmer will leave tomorrow, and I can already tell that I'm starting to develop feelings for her. This is problematic because of my past. What am I going to do? She is not aware of my journal, or if she is, she hasn't mentioned it. I get to read Gwenda's journal after my mother. Zumez. Augustine 24th, 443. My sister Peta snagged Gwenda's journal before I could read it, and so now I have only just got my hands on it. I plan to read it over the next couple of weeks. My business is going well, and people all over Damaska love our classic Remayan bread. My mother's restaurant is finally ready to open, and she is more than excited. Peta and Hansi are officially courting, and my father has given his blessing. Neither Peta nor Hansi plan to move to the next step anytime soon, which is fine by my father and by me. My mother, on the other hand, has excitedly jibed her about grandkids. As for me, I've received a letter from Palmer, and I've sent one back. Things are going well, and it's strange to think about the war, which ended 5 years prior. There are scars on the land and in people's hearts, but at least Skendar and what was once Remay has moved toward a period of peace. Despite my success, I've not surrendered my pride. I'm still a Remayan until I die. Zumez. September 18th, 443. I've finally finished my sister's journal. Gwenda was the bravest and the kindest person I had ever known. Even in the middle of soul-crushing warfare, she still took the time to look out for the citizens who were caught in the middle. Even on her final day of life, which she was well aware of, she faced her destiny and lived as fully and brilliantly as she always had. Gwenda did say in the journal that I was supposed to be journaling too, although Palmer never mentioned it or pushed to see it during her letters. I am extremely thankful for that. She has asked if she could come and see me for New Year's. She plans to spend winter solstice with her mother. It is safe to say that I'm falling in love with her, which scares me as well. How will she react when she discovers I was once a resistance member? I cannot bear that conversation, and so I hope it never ever comes up. To avoid her seeing this journal and asking me about it, I plan to hide this away in my desk in my study. I've rigged one of the drawers with a false bottom, so unfortunately, this will be my last entry. Thank you for being the medium for my thoughts. Sincerely yours, Zumez Amisha.
April 4th, 495. Hi there. I suppose this is as good a greeting as any, right? My name is Zebi, and Zumez was my grandfather. I regret to report that my beloved grandfather passed away on Martini 28, 495. Upon my grandfather's deathbed, he told me about a special family secret that hardly anyone in the family knew. You see, my grandfather and I were really close, and I'm the only grandchild who actually listened to his stories, especially about the Great War. My sister and cousins all preferred Great Uncle Hansi's stories, as he was an actual soldier, while we all believed my grandfather was just a baker, nothing more and nothing less. Well, our family has a lot of strong Skindarite roots. Aside from my grandfather, his parents, and my great-aunt Pita, most of the other marriages and such were Skindarite-born people. The notion of a Rame was only a historical footnote in the great history of Skandar. However, my grandfather knew I was pursuing a history degree at the University of Skandar de Moscow, and he knew I would appreciate this journal, and I absolutely do. My grandfather was more than a baker. He fed his people during the occupation. He was a patriot in the best way he could be, and he was a person who never surrendered his Ramayan pride. Even when he couldn't outwardly say it, he still lived as a proud Ramayan. My grandfather married my grandmother Polaire in the year 450. They had 3 daughters named Gwenda, Svela, and Roski. Gwenda is my mother, and I have 1 sister named Marki. My grandfather eventually passed his bakeries on to my aunt Svela, while my mother and Aunt Roski went on to do other things. I plan to continue on with my studies, focusing on Skindarite history specifically related to the Great War. Grandfather's journal will be extremely vital toward understanding the way history unfolded. As my great-aunt Gwenda would have said, we all have stories to tell and perspectives to share. I shall close this by saying something my grandfather believed in until the day he died. Long live Rame. Sincerely, Zebi Vossendorf.